Hello, and welcome to an episode of Todd Talks. When Todd Talks, people listen. I don't even know who you are. You will. Hopefully. I just introduced myself. Alright, today we are going to have a lot of fun and arguably talk about one of the most magical and insane fights of Death Battle's history, which I know is saying something. Because today we are talking about Scarlet Witch versus Zatanna. And I was really racking my brain on this one. I was doing a deep dive into both these characters because they are so complex. They are so grand in their scale and scope that it's honestly hard to determine a victor here. I have picked one, and I'm more confident in it than I was in Harley Jinx. But then again, I was confident in Harley Jinx, and look how that turned out. So we start out with the Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff. Now, her backstory is absolutely insane, not the least of which is because of the actual real-life issues that were going on between Marvel and Fox, which have now merged because Disney buys everything. But long story short, she and her brother Pietro, yes, they are still brother and sister, were the children of Romani, and were eventually picked up by the High Evolutionary because he sensed there was something special in them, and then modified them so that they could have special abilities. Pietro, of course, became the speedster who lost to Flash, and Wanda became a witch. But it was a bit more complicated than that because not all of her abilities came from the High Evolutionary. Rather, she was blessed with the power of chaos magic and hex magic via the elder god Cthon, who is, let's just say Cthulhu god and move on. And because of that, her powers over time and over comics grew. Because at first she was known as just a hex witch. She could create certain probability changes to where good things would happen, bad things would happen, random things would happen just by the power of her magic, even to the point where she was doing it subconsciously. But then, as time grew on, and she got training from beings like Agatha Harkness, it was Agatha all along! It was a good show. But she began to be able to use chaos magic and all of its abilities to their maximum. And this has made her, by far, one of, if not the most powerful characters in all of Marvel Comics. And that puts her on the top tier against actual gods. In fact, she has fought, battled, healed, and talked with gods on the regular. Not to mention being possessed by Cthon multiple times. But, getting ahead of myself. So what is it that she can actually do? Well, it's actually a multi-tiered thing. You'll hear that for both this and Zatanna, because their powers go beyond just, we're casting spells. They have the ability to manipulate, transmutate, teleport, levitate, fly, create portals, tap into the other dimensions, take in energy, take in powers, astral project. Wanda, and also Zatanna, can do as much as they want to do, and that's what makes them both so incredible. For Wanda, she's most known for casting spells verbally and non-verbally. She has a wide range of magic within her, and one time she actually fused with the Darkhold, which is the tome of dark magic, which you WandaVision fans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans should know all about. Her power is so grand that it can rival just about any magician on the planet, including Doctor Strange or whoever Sorcerer Supreme at the time. Doctor Doom, she has put him in his place multiple times. She's battled the Phoenix Force. I'll get to that a little bit later. And her magic is so grand that, of course, the infamous No More Mutants happened. Now, I want to explain that one. This was during a low point of Wanda's life. The world, the heroes of the world were actually debating whether to kill Wanda. For real. In fact, it was Charles Xavier who said that. And the debate was, is she too powerful to live? Pietro, being eternally loyal to his sister, realized that this was a bad idea. So he tricked Wanda into creating a world known as the House of M. In this world, mutants were 90% of the population, humans were 10% of the population, and Magneto, their father, was in charge. Naturally. Things went horribly wrong, and Magneto, at one key point in that story, decided to put the fate of mutants as a whole over his own children because they thought they were family at the time. And so Wanda, in a rage and psychological break, said no more mutants and wiped out 90% of the mutant population by depowering them, essentially killing many of them. So the mutant population went from millions to hundreds, if not thousands, at most. And at one point, it was less than 200. I remember that from the comics. I really like the X-Men. So yeah, that's how grand her power is. And even then, that's not the top tier. That's just one feat that she's done over time. As her story was built upon and her magic was explored, it wasn't just that she could do chaos magic or hex magic. She was what's called a nexus point. What does that mean? It is a fixed point within each universe, as far as I was reading. And in it, that person or being can be a channel for all the energies of the universe and multiverse. So essentially, Wanda has access and the ability to tap into all sorts of energies all across the multiverse in order to power herself or perform certain acts, which partly is why No More Mutants is so famous, because as they explore that, because of course they couldn't let that go, they realized that not only did she depower her own planet in universe, she depowered the multiverse, possibly the omniverse, according to Beast. And Beast, while scary right now, if you're reading the Krakoa arc, he's not wrong. He's usually incredibly accurate. And Tony Stark and I think it was Forge. Tony Stark and Forge made a machine that would be able to reach out into other timelines and see where all the mutants were, and they found squat. So just 3 words from Wanda sent ripples across the multiverse that depowered mutants. Think of the scale of that. Now, obviously, if you remember Secret Wars, that was eventually undone and then rebirth. So we're all good. We're all good now. And the mutants eventually got their powers back thanks to Scarlet. So, but like that is the epic scale of her abilities, which is why at times she's so hard to control and keep on the good side, because at times she's been a hero, she's been a villain, she's lost her powers, lost her mind, she has created children for herself so she could have a family with Vision. Sounds familiar. And then reality bit back, partly because of Mephisto. It's always Mephisto, except in WandaVision. That was Agatha. So she's been an Avenger, she's been a Brotherhood of Evil Mutant, she's been called the Pretender, the Redeemer. It's a lot. She can do so dang much, and that's what makes her so scary. And to the extent that she's rated by the Avengers themselves as one of the top threats ever. When they were doing Avengers versus X-Men, the Avengers' top fear was Scarlet, because they knew if they couldn't get Scarlet on their side, which I don't think they did, but they also used her to help fix things. So what are you gonna do? If they didn't have her on her side, they were all screwed. They knew it. She has the power to stop and manipulate time to drain a person of their powers, and she's done that multiple times. If you recall the character Rogue, how could you not know Rogue's awesome? Her ability for a long time was just to steal people's powers, but she would keep the powers in them, including what happened to Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. Then Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers. Through Scarlet, she was able to take all the abilities that she had taken over time and give them back to the people so that Rogue could be, let's just call it stable, for lack of a better word, okay? So yeah, that's a lot, and that's pretty impressive magic. One of her lovers, because she's had many, was Wonder Man, who had ionic energy, and she actually took his energy to power herself so she could perform some spells. She once healed an interdimensional being known as the In-Betweener, who is one of the cosmic concept beings of the Marvel Universe. Yes, there are a lot of cosmic entities. He was one of the best ones, and she brought him back to life. She has the power to resurrect. She has the power to talk to the dead, to manipulate souls. It's a lot. Now, I want to go back to the Phoenix Force for a sec. In Avengers vs. X-Men, the whole concept was that the Phoenix Force was coming back to Earth. The Avengers were terrified, but the X-Men, led by Cyclops, who I like, was like every time the Phoenix comes back, something good happens. We just happen to only focus on the bad stuff. So they realized that it was coming more than likely for the mutant known as Hope, who is the daughter of Cable. Long story. So they all fought, and at one point in time, the Phoenix, after getting hit by the Avengers, actually split into 5 parts and went into Cyclops, Emma Frost, Magic, Colossus, and Namor, who were 5 of the main people in Utopia, as it was known at the time. It was Scarlet who was able to help beat them, and it wasn't even close. Like, in a recent arc, it was Scarlet who was named as one of the people who could actually kill the Phoenix Force. The new Phoenix host, Echo, and Black Panther were studying the Phoenix and what could happen, and they labeled who could actually take down the Phoenix Force, and Scarlet was one of them. And they wouldn't say that unless they absolutely believed it to be true. So, yeah. Also, remember No More Mutants, which I just talked about? She undid that with Hope. She combined the energies of herself with Hope to revitalize the mutant population, restore most of the powers, and give new life to mutants in general. And of course, after Secret Wars, that was all rewritten and undone, and blah, 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 blah. So, don't get me started on House of X right now. But the point is that she is so dang powerful that she can take on cosmic entities, has taken on cosmic entities, has affected the multiverse, and because of her hex manipulation, which is probability manipulation, she can get things to happen on a whim. She doesn't have to speak spells. She can just, use energy blasts and whatever to do what she wants, and she can affect the world around her, not just through her spells, but through just probability. That is what she does. She makes things happen so that she can get what she wants done. Now, the problem is that she is not the most stable woman out there. She has repeatedly and constantly had mental issues that drive her to do things that are bad, not the least of which is No More Mutants. And she's not immune to possession of certain kinds, including being possessed by Chthon multiple times, including in the Secret Empire arc, where she and Vision were both possessed by different entities. Also, in another recent arc with Krakoa, she tried to resurrect 3 million mutants on Geonosia, which had been killed by Cassandra Nova. Long story. She felt really bad, and this was when she was the Pretender, because everyone thought she was immune for a long time. She had to collect a variety of items to cast a spell to try and resurrect them. It didn't go well. She basically made mutant zombies. And as we know from Marvel Zombies, that's not a good idea. Even Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, was in horror when he was hearing what Wanda did with the spell. He's like, she's listing off the ingredients, and he's just having a drink. He's like, you didn't. Really? Come on. And he had to work his own magic to get it to work. And even then, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, needed 30 days to undo her spell, because that's how grand and stupid it was. And because of her long life, she has had all these things that have affected her mentally. So someone could, in theory, manipulate her to, have a mental breakdown. But then again, that's how No More Mutants happened. She had a breakdown and decided to do a spell of grand proportions. So it's really not easy to beat her. It can be done, and it has been done in the past, but usually through very contrived plot means. So... and that's not even talking about the one time she actually broke into the House of Ideas, which is supposed to be impossible. But that was kind of weird, so I'm not even going to dive into that one. The point is, Wanda consistently and constantly is one of the most powerful entities in the Marvel universe. So yeah, don't F with the witch, okay? Don't F with the witch. Okay, and now for Zatanna. One of my personal favorite characters in the DC Comics universe. But don't think that's going to impact my... I've learned from my mistake on bias, all right? It never works out. All right. Zatanna was the daughter of Giovanni Zatanna, also called John for some reason, and a woman who was a Homo Magi. What's a Homo Magi? It's an entity of pure magic. Like, it's an actual magical species. And ironically, the mother's never really figured into her backstory, which is fine. It's honestly not as important as you think. But the key thing to know about her mother was because of her being an actual magical entity and species, that passed on to Zatanna. And through her connection with her mother and her training from her father, she became one of the greatest magicians in all of DC Comics, and arguably in all of fiction. And as you all know, she has the ability to cast spells by speaking backwards. This is known as logomancy. And I love the Leonardo da Vinci bit at the preview earlier today. That was really nice. So what this allows her to do is she basically creates a spell backwards and then basically wills it into existence. It's really complicated. Like, they actually dove into this even deeper in a Justice League Dark recently with the Upside Down Man arc, which is, wow, it was really dark. It was dark. Like, even I was freaked out at some of the things they did there, but still. And through this, she can do just about anything she wants, so long as she is able to say it backwards. And this is the crux of her power, but also makes her so dang powerful. Okay, she can teleport, she can fly, she has elemental manipulation, atomic manipulation, she can create dimensions, she can summon people from other dimensions. She did that with a character called Sideways once. Even though he was an entirely different dimension, she summoned him to her. Like, okay. She can create things from nothing. She can shapeshift things into anything she wants. At one time, her BFF slash former lover slash hopeful future lover, I preferred Batman to Constantine every day of the week. I like Matt Ryan Constantine, but yeah. Zatanna deserves better. So I really don't care. But in her time with Batman, one time she was in a tuxedo and she said suit up backwards, and his suit actually transformed into a bat suit. It was awesome. She has been able to use her magics to sense other magical entities, including going kind of Batman and determining what happened at a crime scene based on the magical energies that she was feeling. She could even trace them to powerful entities like the Phantom Stranger, the Spectre, and so on. She is constantly the go-to member magically when they need help, not the least of which is because Batman trusts her most of the time. There was Identity Crisis, which was really dark. What is it with you people with dark stories? I'm kidding. I know they're necessary. But yeah, she messed with Batman's mind once, and he didn't forgive her for quite a while. But they got over it, kind of. So her training via Zatanna and other DC entities has made her incredibly competent, to the point that where we are now, she's easily the most powerful, or one of the most powerful, magical entities in the DC Comics universe. And she certainly thinks so. She once said that she is actually stronger than the Phantom Stranger. And the Phantom Stranger is easily one of the most powerful entities, even though his backstory is... it depends on the continuity. But let's just say he was blessed. He was created in one continuity by the Council of Eternity, which was headed up by the Wizard Shazam, and his power allows him to see the future, act on it, and do things as long as he has permission. Again, it's complicated. But if she feels she's better than Phantom Stranger, that's pretty cool. The Swamp Thing once noted that to know Zatanna was to understand everything about the supernatural, which is interesting because he's supernatural and he knows John Constantine. Which we may not like John Constantine, but he's an incredibly smart and wily individual. He usually knows what he's doing most of the time. So, and again, I've already listed off a lot of her powers along with Wanda. Again, elemental manipulation, teleportation, dimensional travel, energy absorption, time stopping, and so much more. And shields, barriers. She can warp reality. She can basically make it seem impossible what she's doing, but she's doing it because she just can. Now, through her abilities, she has been part of the Justice League of America, Justice League Dark. She's worked side by side with Wonder Woman and even formed like a sisterly relationship with her. She has... it's almost hard to define all that she's done. She's done so much. She has fought some of the most powerful magical entities of all time, including Dr. Fate's host, I suppose you could say, and Nabu himself. She, just in a recent arc, which I know they won't include in the Death Battle because it literally just happened, they faced the actual entity of chaos, and she held her own against it for a while. She had, and then there was the Upside Down Man. The Upside Down Man, it's really complicated, but basically, long before there was magic, there was a dark realm where magical entities resided, and they did not want magic to come to the humans because this was their thing. This was their thing. But naturally, things happened, and humans got the magic, and the dark dimension, whatever you want to call it, was sealed away. The leader of this dimension was that of the Upside Down Man, a predatory force that would be able to harness magic in his own way and basically be this corruptive influence to whatever world that it was in. And when it finally got free and was able to come into our universe, absolute havoc happened. I'm talking dimensions were ruined. Even villains like Circe and Hecate, who were some of the more powerful witches of their time, they were scared of the Upside Down Man. It actually, one of his enforcers, just the enforcer, went and killed one of the actual devils of the DC universe in one of the scariest scenes you'll ever see in a comic book. It freaked me right the heck out. Okay. Just its enforcer went and killed one of the devils, and that was an enforcer, not the Upside Down Man. The Upside Down Man could he has his own reality warping abilities, and yet through it all, Zatanna, with some help, but Zatanna was able to take down the Upside Down Man and actually absorb this corruptive reality warping entity into herself to make sure that she not only had perfect control of her magic, but it was much, much stronger. It did have some side effects, which are still being played out now, but for now, let's just call that a victory. And then, of course, if you saw the Death Battle preview, she took down a guy named Zor, who was a rival to the Spectre, by literally breaking the fourth wall and going out into the comic panel and crushing it so that his dimension would fold in on himself. What? Yeah, it's a lot. So, and again, all she has to do is know how to say something backwards, which you would think would be a hindrance to her, but it's actually not. She is so competent at this that, as noted in the preview, she can think on the fly and speak in things like palindromes on a whim so that she can get her spells off. It's what she does. And she does have some nonverbal spells, okay? It's not entirely logomancy. She does have some magical items that she can use and certain things, but it's her top tier magic, she does have to speak backwards. And that, sadly, is her weakness. Without being able to speak, she has issues. For example, she has lost or gotten seriously injured by characters like Deathstroke and the Joker. The Deathstroke did a precise blow to her liver, which caused her to gag, and if you're gagging, you can't speak. And then the Joker shot her through the throat, which obviously makes her rather useless if you can't talk. Now, again, she did bounce back from these, obviously, and it's not something that everyone is going to be able to understand, but even a basic concept of magic knows that if you say spells, things are going to happen. So that is something to keep in mind. But even without that, she is one of the best, if not the best magician in all of DC Comics. Her power is usually only limited by plot. As I saw this in a respect thread, and it's perfectly handled, she is as top tier as she can be or as low tier as she needs to be depending on the plot. That's comics, but when it is her top tier, she has battled gods. She actually got Mr. Mixius Spitlick, the fifth dimensional being that messes with Superman. She used her magic on him to speak backwards so he could say his name, which is the only way to get rid of him. So her magic works on multiversal beings. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And Zatanna's just awesome. I mean, she's so much fun and confident and everything. She is a stage magician, and it shows in how she handles things. She's someone you absolutely want on your team, and I would definitely put her on my Justice League if I ever got to make one. So 24 minutes, perfect timing. All right, now who wins between this battle between Scarlet Witch and Zatanna and Zatara? I really wanted to vote for Zatanna here. I did. I really, and especially after that preview with the whole Zor reality breaking fourth wall stuff, I really wanted Zatanna to win this. But there are two problems here. Zatanna can go into other dimensions. Zatanna can summon people from other dimensions. Zatanna, to a certain level, you could argue, is multiversal. Scarlet is multiversal. Definitive. Proven. Royally. Yes, Zatanna has fought beings on par with Spectre. Wanda's fought the Phoenix Force. Wanda has fought, or has done things to almighty entities like Chthon and the In-Betweener. Yes, Zatanna beat the Upside Down Man. It wasn't on her own. It was a multi-layered plan that had help from Wonder Woman and John Constantine and Swamp Thing literally creating a dimension around the Upside Down Man so that his power was weakened, and then Zatanna did the rest. Or at least that's how I understood it. And then during that time with the Upside Down Man, her magic, Zatanna's, were out of whack the whole time because of the imbalance that was going on. Her powers are derived from the powers of order and certain other forces, but they can be grander than that. And while it is true that the Scarlet Witch is very unstable, that at times can actually work in her advantage. The other problem here is that both of them basically have the same powers. They both are reality warpers. They both can control elements, stop time, elemental manipulation, flying, soul powers, shields, everything. They are a really good match for each other. But the problem, and each one can rob each other of powers. Both of them have that ability. The problem is that Scarlet, as that nexus point that I talked about, she has more access to abilities than Zatanna does, at least, and that's how I interpret it. And due to that, while she could lose her powers, A, that's not a guarantee. B, she could get her powers back through other manipulation. And C, that would require Zatanna to make sure that she casts the right spell, which is not as easy as even she can make it seem at times. Here's the other problem. In two different things, I saw that Wanda actually has resistances to magic. In fact, she actually destroyed a high evolutionary machine that was immune to magic. It was immune to magic, and she used magic to destroy it. And then another one, Zatanna, was stated, and this may not be canon anymore, but it's stated in the thread, that she can be overpowered by certain kinds of magic. And that would track with what happened with the Upside Down Man, who was magic himself, and it was a very corruptive influence, and thus affected her magic. And then you gotta remember, Wanda's got hex magic, which is very subconscious. She can make things happen without, I almost said Z, that's Batman's nickname for her, without Zatanna really understanding what was going on. And again, if you can stop Zatanna from talking, that's an endgame scenario, or at the very least, enough of a stopping point to where Scarlet Witch can deal the finishing blow. This is much closer than people probably realize. When people heard Scarlet Witch, they go, oh, of course Scarlet Witch is going to win. Zatanna is more than a match for her on most cases. And if they were just doing a spell off, I might even give the edge to Zatanna here. But this is a death battle, and Scarlet Witch has more than enough potential to stop Zatanna, to get rid of her powers, or to close her mouth in one way or another so that she can't speak. And Scarlet doesn't need to speak to do her magics. Alright, she has spells, and she's used spells, not unlike Doctor Strange and others, but hers are more about force of will than it is about anything else, which is a good example for MCU Scarlet Witch, because she doesn't say spells, she just moves her hands and the things start to happen, and that's a pale comparison to the Scarlet Witch we have in the comics. So even though I love Zatanna, I adore her dearly, I'm gonna have to pick Scarlet Witch to win this fight. Please let me be right. And with that, I'm in this episode of Todd Talk. Let me know who you think is going to win between Scarlet Witch and Zatanna, and how much fun do you think this battle is going to be? Let me know in the comments below. So, I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening, and I'll see you around.